Who were you before you lost your wild self?
That's what we're helping you explore on the Tend Her Wild podcast.
Through questions and tools around how best to listen to your inner voice,
rewild ourselves, and live the most authentic life where we thrive instead of survive.
I'm Betsy.
And I'm Kate.
And we're so glad you've joined us for this episode. Hello, Tend Her Wild podcast listeners. It's Kate and I. We are coming off a really major event. We just finished teaching our first Rewilding course. It was 4 weeks. We had 50 women in the cohort, and we finished last night about 8:30 p.m. So it's not even 24 hours ago.
I know. Yeah, it's not.
That we finished the course. And so we felt like while it was still fresh, it was such a deep and personal and profound experience for both of us that we thought, you know what, let's do a podcast sort of reviewing it and recapping what we did. And we feel like for those listeners out there that didn't have a chance to take the course, we wanted to give you some of the highlights. Mm-hmm. And there still is a chance to do it through the end of August on your own terms, if it's something you still feel is calling to you.
Yeah. It was quite a month, actually, for me. I feel like anytime you do something new, I think you get as much out of it as you're putting out. At least for me, I felt like I learned a lot about myself. And just being in community talking about it was different.
Yeah,
great.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, I think that even though you and I have talked that this archetype of the wild woman has been circling us for really consistently for 4 or 5 years since we started this podcast, it almost feels like she showed up with an even stronger energy to support us and to maybe guide us about what we needed to point out and what we needed to learn in these last 4 weeks. Yeah. So that's what we're here today to talk about. So let's first define, we talk about her all the time on this podcast, but what actually is the wild woman archetype? And is she real? Is she imagination? What is this all about?
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings that we shared from the book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, is that she's the health of all women, which just feels very big, important, and also lovely. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the word wild, it has a connotation, which I don't think is an accident, by the way, in our culture. But I think sometimes we think, oh, that means,
out of control.
She's gone wild, girls gone wild.
Reckless. Yeah.
But she's the health of all women.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree that I think that there is sometimes a misunderstanding that rewilding means that we, go out of control, or that we're anti-family, we're anti-men, or anti-culture. And that's not it at all. It's actually, she's showing up because she's like, hey, you have a really beautiful natural essence that you've strayed very far from. And I'm here to give you some signs, some guidance, and some encouragement on how to return to who you actually are versus who you've been conditioned to be over the years. Yeah. So she is the health of all women. And I truly believe this archetypal energy is sort of here to guide us back home, which I think home is ourselves.
Yeah. And she often shows up loudest, I think, in midlife,
although we
did have a young girl.
We had a young woman in our cohort who was just 26, and we were blown away, as we've had many young women on our podcasts who were like, oh, she's showing up. The wild woman is showing up for them. But yes, I do believe for the vast majority of us, you and I included, it was midlife when we really started to get the circling, the knock on the door by the wild woman.
Yeah. And then you go back to this idea of if she's the health of all women in midlife, sometimes that's where we get out of balance or out of alignment. Things aren't, we know something's off. And so it makes sense that she shows up loudest at a time when we feel out of balance
Yeah.
and maybe not as healthy as we could be from a variety of
Yeah.
aspects.
Yeah, it's almost like our eyes start to open because things aren't working out. And
Hmm.
so we're looking around like what do I need? What's going on here? Why am I feeling so overwhelmed, so dried out, so
Yeah.
burned out? So even though you and I have read and reread and then read again the book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, which is a dense, deep, symbolic book, and we've talked about so many different areas of it on this podcast, through the creation of this course, and once again, diving into the book, we sort of began to see, or what started to emerge for us is what we're calling, oh, this is
Yeah.
the formula of rewilding. And formula to me actually has a very structured masculine
Hmm.
approach to it. Maybe it's more the path of rewilding
Yeah. Or the flow of
or the flow of
rewilding.
rewilding. But there are a couple components
Mm.
that we thought we would share with you listeners today, that emerged for us as we have been
Yeah. I
in the
think that
midst of
was
this.
a moment of clarity for both of us that, oh, that there is, when we look at back at all the stories we've heard from women, our own experience with this, these are the things that are markers really of consistently that put a framework around it, which I think is was helpful as we shared it.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about them.
We think there's sort of
Mhm.
four distinct steps here. But we also want to point out that they're probably nonlinear. They might not go in order. You might go in and out of them,
Which is
um,
the feminine,
which
right?
is very feminine. But the first step is it's the call.
Mhm.
Clarissa Pinkola Estes talks about it almost as if that wild woman archetype is circling you. It's like she just keeps circling. She
Yeah.
just keeps watching you. And there's a moment or many moments where you sort of realize, I'm stuck. And
Yeah. For me, that call, another way to think about it is just your inner voice,
yeah,
that little whisper, inner knowing that pops up and you get a little, you know, hit of it almost, and
yeah,
then it kind of goes back down.
yeah,
And I think the whisper kind of gets louder when you're not paying
yeah,
attention. At least it did for me. And so, yeah, this call or circling, she is us.
yeah.
She's the
She's
essence
the
of
health
us.
of all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that inner knowing that
But
pops up.
she doesn't show up when things are great and we're on top of the
No.
world and we just got the promotion and everything is happy and joyful. She shows up when we're actually restless and we're
Mhm.
suffering, when we're grieving, when we're overwhelmed, burned
Yeah.
out.
When we don't feel like we're living fully.
Yeah. Because she's showing up because she's like, oh, yeah, you're off course. And I want to help guide you back to who you are.
Yeah. She's almost a voice of desire, I think, or a longing that we have.
Yeah, definitely. I think she shows up when we are longing. And so
Mhm.
that was a big question we posed to the people in the course, and we pose it to all of you listeners as well, is what are you really longing for?
And how often do we actually sit with ourselves to contemplate that?
It's
We're
probably pretty rare as
Yeah.
women because we tend to be the caregivers. And so we're thinking about what our kids are needing or wanting, what our aging parents are longing for. And we're often trying to meet the needs of others versus
Yeah.
really sink in and be like, no, what does Betsy long for? What does her heart desire?
Yeah. I had a realization that I really kept deferring my longing. I knew what it was, but I kept thinking, well, as soon as that happens, then I'll get to me. As
Mm,
soon as, my last one graduates, as soon as, we have enough in the bank for college, as soon as, all those things that were out there in the future. And I think that was my fear talking, that I
yeah,
wasn't ready to acknowledge that. But I think often women do, we defer our
yeah,
own.
yeah. Which is why I think this symbolism of her circling, the wild woman circling, makes sense because Yeah, I sensed that she circled me for many, many years before I paid attention. It's like I had to really suffer in a deep way before I'm like, oh, there's got
Mhm.
to be something more. So I think there's also a patience in the wild woman archetype. She's like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm circling. I see you. I
Yeah.
can guide you back home, but you got to be ready for it.
I think that's true. I also think it's not this loud booming voice. It's not this, idea that she's screaming at us. It's a very subtle existence that is around us and in us that just when we're quiet enough we can hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move into kind of the second, I wouldn't call it phase, but the second step that we identified, and that's the conditioning, which is almost like, we hear the call, but the conditioning says, okay, to go forward, you need to look back.
Yeah, bingo.
Hmm.
And in the book, Dr. Clarissa says that to relearn the deep feminine instincts, it is vital to see how they were decommissioned to begin with. So I would say this is in many ways, at least to me, Kate, this feels like the real work.
I agree.
And this is the digging into how did I get off course? Why am I people pleasing? Why am I still deferring my own power to other people? What, we have to really go back and understand the seeds of it, which often are childhood. They can be coming from trauma. They can be coming from culture.
Yeah, we identified kind of these three buckets of family, lineage, family patterns, trauma, big T, little
Yeah.
t. We all have experienced trauma. And then our culture, which is probably for me, I mean, that affects all of us. No one can escape kind of
And it's a patriarchal culture.
yes.
So for women,
So
it's especially challenging.
right, and we can't our feminine is often, it's designed to be suppressed. Our systems
Yeah.
suppress that, and so we suppress it in ourselves because we're living in this culture, and so many of our the industries we work in, the systems and organizations we're part of, it's so, embedded in them
Yeah.
that but once you become aware of it, I think it's easier to see kind of the impacts and so for all of these, it's kind of opening your eyes to these 3 areas,
Yeah.
and individually, we all have different family lineage and family patterns. Our traumas are all unique to us and how the impact was. And then I would say the culture, I mean, it impacts us probably that's the one that kind of feels the most systemic,
Yeah.
but that is
But
the
we have to understand our patterns. I mean, you've heard me say this before. We don't live a life, we live a pattern. And so we have to understand that pattern. And even if it started out as a pattern that worked for us, like you and I've talked about, one of our patterns were achievement and pleasing and being
performing.
good and performing. And so that pattern works and actually brings success for a period of time. And then there comes a point where often our patterns wear out or we feel really stuck in that pattern. And so I think this is when the rewilding, this wild woman
Yeah.
archetype comes in and says, you know,
This isn't working
this
anymore.
isn't working anymore.
Yeah.
So,
So we shared some of the results,
yeah.
right, of conditioning.
Yeah. When we're stuck in these patterns, what does it look like?
Yeah. So when we're conditioned to be nice, it often means we're not truthful,
Yeah. And
which is
when,
kind of a big one,
big one.
right?
And when we're conditioned to be compliant and follow the rules, then we can't be instinctual. We don't trust our
Ourselves.
knowing anymore.
If we are conditioned to be self sacrificing, we always hear women being praised for being selfless, then we're not self protective
Yeah.
and loyal to ourselves.
I'm living into that one big time in my life. The realization of how much I've sacrificed for so many people over the years at the expense of protecting myself.
Hmm.
So it's a big one. Our conditioning also is a hustle culture. So we're trained and conditioned to be productive, to use every minute of the day,
Oh, yeah.
getting things done, accomplishing things,
Doing, doing, doing.
doing. And that comes at the cost of our own creativity.
Mhm.
I think to be creative, you really need a lot of space and time and downtime. And we're not giving ourselves that, we have to be productive, then we miss out on all these potential new ways of creating in the world.
Yeah. And then lastly, if we are conditioned to please everyone, then we are not authentic and true to ourselves because we are constantly surveying and being hypervigilant about how to
Yeah.
please everyone else. And then we're left kind of as the last resort or the last thought.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so often when we're listening to ourselves, we know when we're doing things for other people that don't feel true to us. And so it really can hasten your own growth and expansion.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we spent 1 week on this topic of the conditioning that we all
Mhm.
have. But we want to make a point that uh, it's actually the rest of your
Yeah.
life that you're going to need to work with your patterns. And once you begin to see one pattern and make different choices and maybe shift that pattern, a new one will pop up that's been a little deeper under the
Mhm.
surface. So we don't want to give any kind of advice
Yes.
that somehow you
This
just
is
need a
easy.
week to work through your conditioning. This is a lifetime, but
Yeah.
you have to see the conditioning to be able to move into this next step, this third step, which is the reclamation.
Yeah. So having that self-awareness can allow you to reclaim the parts of you that have been not
Kind
taken
of
care of,
lost
but
or splintered
severed.
away, severed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the reclamation. We identified different areas of ourselves that we felt like for women are the main ones, and our body is one.
Her voice,
Cycles. We get away from this cyclical way of living.
our intuition,
And then our creativity, which is the feminine.
and our joy, this just capacity to be able to feel pleasure and joy and expansion.
And so it takes self awareness around those things, but then also we shared a lot about the practices that you can engage in to kind of help you return those parts of yourself. It's almost like a muscle that we haven't been building in a while, and
Yeah.
so when you turn attention back to it, you can do things daily or weekly that start to bring you those parts of you back into focus.
Yeah. And with these rewilding practices, as I even look at the list here, I think about, well, these are actually all things that haven't often always been given a lot of emphasis
Mm-mm.
because, again, we've lived in a capitalistic culture that's told us to work hard and make more money and
Buy more
get more
stuff.
done. And the rewilding practices are, they're free, right? Be in nature.
Yeah. Rest like it's your job.
Yeah. Move your body, feel your body, be present in your body.
Storytelling is big. And I think our course really, for me, that was such a highlight that when women speak and share their stories,
Yeah.
something lifts out of them. There's like space created and they feel less alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And community. I mean, this is
Oh,
such a
yeah.
big piece of rewilding is that our lives don't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
And I actually also think that we can't really heal on our own. We do best when we're healing and seen and held in community. And so there's something powerful about listening to other people's stories. That's what this podcast has been about for you and
Right.
I. We're like, how many times have someone left
Ugh.
after we've interviewed them and we say, I totally related to that. I saw
Mhm.
myself in her. That
Yeah.
part about, her husband, I totally got that.
Yeah. That it has been the through line for us is, and the benefit of hearing these stories, I think, is that there's power in speaking and there's also power in listening and
Yeah.
hearing. And that's what we can do for each other. And it takes vulnerability, I think, on women's part. But I think back to how women used to live together and support one another and show up for each other, cook for each other. take care of children, that communal type of, tribal way that women lived. And I think we have a yearning that's in us. And I think there's a yearning to go
Yeah,
back to that.
I agree. I agree.
And then there's our intuition,
Calling back our intuition.
which
Mhm.
we talk about kind of learning in you where it lives and where you can tap into it. Sometimes it's the heart, or gut, more.
Or the third eye.
Or a third eye.
Mhm.
And so having an awareness about where you can start to tap into that when making decisions, when saying yes to things instead of pleasing, it's like turning inward and asking yourself and listening to that
Yeah.
voice of, is it a yes or is it a no?
Yeah.
And that leads into boundaries,
Yeah.
right?
It's also free. So hard to do at
Mhm.
times, especially because of our conditioning. But yeah, figuring out what doesn't feel right and saying this isn't okay.
Yeah.
I can say no to this.
I like to say boundaries are an act of self-love.
Yeah. Not only for yourself, but the person you're setting a boundary with. You're loving them
Yep.
by being clear about, where your limit is.
Right.
And then last but not least, one of a big rewilding practice is play.
Mm.
How can we, we are really our most natural essence, around the age of 7 or 8, they say that's when we're really most what our true essence is. And I was clearly much more playful
Oh yeah. My
and
imagination.
authentic and expressive and creative,
Curious.
curious. Yeah, all of it. Good storytelling at that age. So there's something about allowing ourselves to be more in touch with that childlike essence. It's not an immature essence, but it's actually a very real essence, a real part of us.
Yeah. And part of the work too, I think, of rewilding is remembering what you can about yourself at that age. Because there's clues, right? There are pieces of you that when we think back, we can remember because it's still in us. And that's what you're drawing back into your life
Yeah.
at a later age. It's just going back and picking those pieces back up.
One of the images we brought forward when we talked about this third step of reclamation is we learned that the word reclaim actually comes from a French word, and it means to call the hawk back, which has been let loose to fly. So it's sort of like there's these parts of us that have flown away. And this reclamation process is calling it back home, calling back the part of you that is actually meant to be with you. And so we had lots of hawk sightings in this last month. We had lots of people reporting hawk sightings.
Yeah.
So that was a powerful. We were asking people to really watch synchronicity. What things are happening in your life symbolically? Pay attention. Pay attention to your dreams. These are all parts of this rewilding process.
Yeah.
And then our fourth step is very unsexy, but what is it, Kate?
It is rewilded living, which is repeat.
Repeat. The fourth step
Repeat.
is that we just have to repeat it.
Rinse, wash, repeat.
Yeah. Doesn't end. There's no end point.
Yeah. And I think that was, I think we knew that, but really coming to terms with that is it's not the goal to be done. It's not a place of arrival. It's just a new way of living and existing and showing up in the world and moving through the world. And it's changing your own patterns to reflect what it is you know is true for you. And so, yeah, there's no perfect to this. There's no, certificate you're going to get. It's just having the self-awareness to move through the world more authentically.
Yeah. Yeah. So if this course seems like something you could benefit, we also acknowledged as we taught this that a big piece of rewilding is timing. There are certain times where we're really ready. There are other times where the wild woman archetype has to keep circling us because we've got some things to take care of before we're ready to dig in and decondition and look at things and reclaim. But if you're listening to this recording at a time when you're like, I could use a little extra guidance, about how to call my hawk back home,
Mhm.
how to bring back these parts of myself that I know have been lost somewhere along the way. This course will be open, and it's everything that we did is all recorded. And so all the details for that are below. We also sent to all of our participants a rewilding box. And so for the next 25 people who sign up for this course, we have a box that you can also add on. So all the details are below. And if not, just keep listening to our podcast, because we're committed to continue to explore these stories
Yeah,
of people returning to their essence and their truth.
absolutely. I think this just has solidified so much for me. And it is a new way of also listening in the world and listening to story. And I have so much, we just honor all those women that participated, didn't know, exactly what they were signing up for. And
We put them into groups and they had to talk, and
yeah,
they kept
and
showing up.
they kept showing up.
Yeah.
And so kudos to them and for trusting us. And thank you for listening to this podcast, because that's also part of this work that we're putting out into the world. We hope you also are able to find solace in listening to other stories, inspiration, that it piques something in you, because I think that's what we're here to do for each other, honestly, is show up for one another and inspire one another and be in community around the type of world we want to see.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Kate.
thanks, Betsy.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Come back and rewild with us again next week.